Hello, my name is Roisin and welcome back to my channel. It's been a while since I've done a tag video, apart from the quarterly check-in videos that we do every year. I have been tagged to do this one by Charlotte from over at Queenie Reads, and I needed some easy videos to film for my month off, so I thought I would film this one. This is the There Are 10 But book tag, which was created by Kieran over at KD Books, and is based on that TikTok trend of There Are 10 But. There are 10 but they eat pizza with a knife and fork kind of a situation when it relates to people. This tag, of course, takes that concept and applies it to books. So we're going to get in. There's only a few questions, so I doubt this will be a particularly long video, although, you know, I have a tendency to ramble and can never answer a question with one book, so we'll see how we go. Oh, of course, I will leave all of the questions themselves in the description, and I will tag some people. I'll let you know at the end who I come up with to tag. So, There Are 10 But. They're over 500 pages long. The Mirror and the Light by Hilary Mantel, of course, has to be my favourite book that is over 500 pages long. I actually think every book in the trilogy is over 500, so I guess you can count all of them. Let me look it up. So yeah, Wolf Hall is 672 pages long, so definitely over 500. Bring Up the Bodies, which I have just got off my shelves, is, I think this one might be slightly under, 482, so doesn't quite make it. And then The Mirror and the Light, which I also did look up actually before I started the tag, is 912 pages long. So there are 10 but they're almost 1,000 pages long. If you've been here for any length of time, you'll know my deep affection for the Wolf Hall trilogy by Hilary Mantel. I actually have an entire review of the whole trilogy, which I'll leave linked in the cards above if you want to see more thoughts. But if you don't know what it is the trilogy that follows Thomas Cromwell's life, who was one of the advisors to Henry VIII over the period between over the period of his breaking with the Catholic Church, basically. And that it's just a wonderful, incredible piece of historical fiction, some of the best writing. You really feel like you're viscerally there. Really interesting perspective of being on Cromwell's shoulder rather than in his head or at a distance watching him, which I love. I love the writing, I love the ghosts that haunt it. It's a really, really brilliant series, but yes, most of the books are over 500 pages long, and the whole series together is nearly 2,000 pages, but absolutely brilliant, definitely worth it, definitely a 10. Question number 2, there are 10 but they're on pre-order. Now, when I saw this, was like, I don't really pre-order books, which is true. I do sometimes request proofs, or at least I used to, but since I realised how little I was actually reading those proofs, I stopped requesting them. So I haven't had a proof in a while, and I haven't requested one in ages either. However, I did just get accepted for Libro FM's influencer programme, and I thought that would be much better for me because I listen to so many audiobooks. The likelihood of me listening to an audiobook is higher than the likelihood of me reading a proof on time. So I got accepted for that. I will leave a link in the description if you want to go and use Libro FM. It's better. I think you can only really use it if you're US or Canada, as far as I'm aware. I have tried to use it in the past and it's not really worked, but I know a lot of you are American, so that link will be good for you. And I think there is a way to use it if you're from the UK, but I never quite figured that out. But anyway, because I got accepted to that, I got my first ARC this month, and it is one of the books that was on my anticipated releases list, and that is Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. So The Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver is one of my favourite books. It's one that I mentioned in my favourite books video that I made as soon as I started this channel, and I absolutely adored it. But I haven't actually read any other Barbara Kingsolver despite having the Lacuna somewhere on my shelves for years. So this is why I don't order proofs anymore. Books just sit on there for a long time. Demon Copperhead is the new book, which is kind of a modern David Copperfield, I think. I'm assuming, basically from the name, and also the fact it is the story of this one boy's life. Set in Lee County, Virginia, returning to her home region to write what she claims to be the great Appalachian novel. She seeks to challenge the popular stereotypes of hillbillies and trailer trash as being fundamentally anti-working class and undermining the remnants of communal traditions among small town and rural poor. So she uses the structure, themes and characters of Charles Dickens' David Copperfield to explore the continuation of capitalist exploitation in the 21st century, which honestly sounds exactly up my street. I love David Copperfield. It's the only Dickens I've ever read, but I enjoyed it. I love big sweeping epics. I love Barbara Kingsolver's writing. I love anything that challenges the capitalist exploitation of the 21st century working class. So yes, very excited to read that one, and very glad I have now got my hands on what do they call it? Advanced listener copy, an ALC rather than an ARC. So they're a 10, but they're a red flag. I guess we could be talking about like problematic authors here, but like I do know some problematic authors, but I can't think of any that I'd be like, yes, they're definitely a 10 still. They're a 10, but problematic books. I guess for me, like older books are easier on this. So The Great Gatsby, I would say, is a red flag of a book, but I love it. Beautiful writing. Possibly mostly stolen from Zelda Fitzgerald. F. Scott Fitzgerald was not the best husband, definitely a misogynist, but Great Gatsby's gorgeous. Didn't like his other work, one of his other works, the one that's set in Paris, in the French Riviera. I can't remember the name of it, something summer, something, I'm not sure. But I didn't like that one because the misogyny was like really in your face there, but I enjoyed The Great Gatsby. 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, one of my favourite books that I read last year, the sort of kingpin of magical realism, set by a Colombian author, set in a fictional country about the Buendia family and their experience of colonising and then neo-colonialism, impact of capitalism, brutal wars and things. A lot of incest, a lot of rape as healing to women. So I guess those things are problematic, but for me, because of the like mythic quality, you don't judge Zeus when he does that. So I feel like there is something similar going on here. The vibes give that mythic vibe, so I'm okay with those red flags. They work for me. I guess Lolita as well would be like the ultimate book that's a red flag, but I think it's a 10. Gorgeous, sumptuous writing, and so good at making you feel so perfectly uncomfortable. The ultimate unreliable narrator. We don't even know if the events that he's narrating are true, regardless. We know obviously that what he says of Lolita and her actions, Dolores, is not true, but even the events, like the timing and everything, there's stuff that like doesn't line up, so you really constantly question him, and the way that it kind of skewers the fetishization of the young by our culture more generally. Yeah, I think it's brilliant. I think it's so clever. I know a lot of people feel uncomfortable with reading descriptions of a paedophile, and I can understand why you wouldn't want to read that, but I don't think the book's to blame, personally. But anyway, maybe I should make a video about that. Let me know in the comments if you want a video essay about Lolita. Okay, they're a 10, but they're over 100 years old. So I talk about classics fairly regularly on this channel. I've got a playlist which will be linked there. So I read books that are 100 years old every so often. They're a 10, but they're over 100 years old. Persuasion by Jane Austen. Absolutely love it. Like, it's constantly vying with Pride and Prejudice as to which one of those is actually my favourite Austen. Persuasion is the story of Anne Elliot. It is, and her having rejected Captain Wentworth in the past, and then she's back with him. And now he's back in her life, and her family have to move from their big landed gentry home because her father is a spendthrift, and they need to save money. So the Admiral, who is kind of more of a self-made man, ends up living in their home, and it is about nostalgia, longing, regret, getting older, and being more of a quiet, reserved person. Anne Elliot is much more reserved, and the sort of bigger personalities are more mocked in this book. But it is also a book about the rise of the middle classes and the changing look at class at that time period, only in a very small sector, but the way that class was changing. It's got so much going on under the surface for such a more quiet, like melancholy book. Don't let Netflix fool you. It's not a simple rom-com. It's a very complicated book, and I love it. And I do have a video about that too. But also things like North and South, which is been described as Pride and Prejudice for socialists, about the burgeoning labour movement in the north of England, or Tess of the D'Urbervilles, if you want to look at rural poor in the southwest of England in the turn of the 19th to the 20th century, and the damaging nature of patriarchal morals. I've lost the words. Guess I like political books from the olden days. But I did saw this one and I thought, wow, they're a 10 but they're over 100 years old. Let's go a step further. They're a 10 but they're over 2,000 years old. The Odyssey by Homer. Absolutely one of the ancient texts that I think stands up the most. One of the ones that I think is the most readable and approachable. There are some tragedies that I would also say are really approachable. Medea, Antigone. I don't think any of the comedies are very approachable, to be honest. They're quite tough going. But the Odyssey, compared to the Iliad and the Aeneid, the Odyssey is definitely the one I would go for. The story of Odysseus at the end of the 10 Years' War, here of the man of many twists and turns. This translation describes him as a complicated man, and he's travelling back to Ithaca whilst his wife is beset by suitors who want a slice of her kingdom, and so she is weaving over his shroud overnight and during the day, and then unpicking it overnight to avoid the suitors. And also his son travels around some of the islands, so we see Helen and Menelaus post the war. So there's a lot of adventure going on in here, and it's one that I really think is worth it. It's wonderful. And this translation is by Emily Wilson, so I guess that's not over 100 years old. This is about 5 years old, I think. The translation, the first translation of the Odyssey into English by a woman, and definitely the one I recommend if you haven't read. Then we have There Are 10, But They Were Studied in School. And I actually liked a lot of the books I studied in school. Not all of them did I get on with, but I mean, I do this now, so obviously I liked English literature. It was a subject that I got on well with, and so I got on well with a lot of the books. I didn't hate all of them. I mean, I studied Pride and Prejudice in school, and I've already talked about Jane Austen, and I don't think I need to describe Pride and Prejudice to you, but I will say I do have a video about it, so if you want to go and watch some of my video essays, there are a few about Austen. But I studied The Bloody Chamber by Angela Carter at school, and I really, really loved that. I did the Gothic. Angela Carter is a writer that I really get on with. I really like the creepy, dark, bloody, visceralness of her books, properly guts and gore, that in this kind of poetic way. It is a style, something that I've always enjoyed. The Bloody Chamber is a collection of her short stories, which are retellings of fairy tales, and they kind of challenge the patriarchal ideas of fairy tales, and also the way sexuality is in fairy tales, and purity versus what's the word I want, lasciviousness in fairy tales, and the sexualization of the very young is definitely a part of it, which I know some other people who read these books with me were very uncomfortable with, but I enjoyed it. I like her style of writing, and I like the kind of weird darkness, but as you may know if you've been watching my videos recently, that is something that I have recently rediscovered I love. So, and then Shakespeare. I am a big Shakespeare fan. I have a video, which is a video essay about plays within plays in Shakespeare. And I've always loved Shakespeare. Ever since I was quite small, I had a collection of Shakespeare tales retold for children, which had parts of the actual text in them. But I've always got on with Shakespeare. I know not everyone loves it, but I haven't read... there are 37 plays, and I think I've read 12 of them, maybe? Something like that. I'm not going to work it out now. But I have read a fair amount, but not all of them. I know there are some duds as well. But ones that I studied in school, ones I studied in school and really enjoyed, The Tempest. I studied for English GCSE, and it is potentially one of my favourites. One of his later plays, set on an island, where Prospero, who is a magician, was banished by his brother because they wanted to take over his dukedom in Italy, and his daughter, and he lives there with his daughter and a man who he lived there who kind of enslaves, and also a sprite. And then the men who banished him to this island are going past on a boat, so they crash there, and he gets his revenge, sort of. It's not that plotty, but I really enjoyed it. Macbeth. Obviously, always the best, one of the best, about Macbeth, Thane of Glamis, during battle, tries to become king through a lot of murder, egged on by his wife, and it is a really wonderful book. It's a really wonderful play, one with a lot of plots actually, and I think one that's quite easy to grasp if you're not a huge Shakespeare person. It's one with lines you will know even if you're not a Shakespeare person, like double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble, something wicked this way comes, out foul spot. Anyway, there's a lot in there that I think would be recognisable even if you're not a huge Shakespeare person. Hamlet, again, I studied Hamlet in English and then I studied Hamlet in drama, so I've seen it played in the theatre several times, and I really, really enjoy it. It is probably the most famous one in terms of quotable lines. So I think, yeah, to be or not to be, obviously, but there's a lot of other ones that are from there. It's a very psychological play that's very much in the head of Hamlet and about his reactions to everything. And again, it's another unreliable narrator, which is interesting for a play because you're watching it, so the narrator is not so clear, but the way that the constructions of plays within plays and Hamlet kind of constructing everything and being the director of all the other characters in the plot, it kind of gives you that idea of a point of view and a perspective. So yeah, I really enjoy Hamlet. And actually another play that I really loved that I studied both English and drama was The Crucible by Arthur Miller, which is a allegory for McCarthyist era America set during the Salem witch trials, and it's great fun. It's great fun to play someone pretending to be possessed. And the final one is they're a 10 but they leave you with emotional damage. So some of the other people who I've watched talk about this have talked about books that made them like cry and feel like emotionally connected to books, but I think I took this in a slightly different direction. I don't actually often cry at books. Like, I am a sensitive soul, but I don't find that books make me cry. Although sometimes I do. I think of myself as a sensitive soul, and then sometimes I remember how much like my mother I am, and just I'm a bit more just how you wished and pull yourself together than I generally see myself as being. But if any of you know any women from Northern Ireland, you will know that sensitivity is not high on the list of qualities that they possess. Anyway, I went in the direction of made me feel incredibly uncomfortable and kind of slightly scarred, and has stayed with me for a very long time, and that is The Discomfort of Evening by Marieke Lucas Reineveld, which is a book that I read this year and is one of my favourite books that I've read this year. It's one of the only ones that's really stuck in my head. Very creepy and dark, about a girl who has lost her brother in an accident and lives in a isolated rural Christian community in the Netherlands. Like, her family are kind of falling apart and she's just going through the life, and there is abuse and there is a lot of darkness in it. Yeah, it's a really dark book. If you need trigger warnings, I would look them up for this book because there's a lot going on, but I really loved it. I thought that the distance with which the writer writes about the experiences that she's going through, the kind of disassociation that is in the narrative, loved it. But it is dark, and it is one of the books that's like made me, I was just listening to the audiobook whilst I was on a train, and I was literally like, I must have looked quite gormless, but I really enjoyed it. So there you go, I've managed to make a 5-question tag last a very long time. I hope you have enjoyed my ramblings, and as I said, I would tag people, and Charlotte's already done it. I'll tag Grace from GK Reads, and I'll tag Leanne Rose, and I'm just going to see who's already done it. Matthew Sharappa. I'll tag Matthew Sharappa as well. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please do let me know your answers in the comments down below, or in a video, because if I didn't tag you, you can still do it. And I will see you again soon. Thank you very much for watching. I think, is this my last pre-filmed vlog? I think this is my last pre-filmed video, if it goes as planned. So I'll be back with 2 videos a week after this one. So do please remember to subscribe, give the video a like, and I will see you again very soon. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.